Language is necessary. A person's first language allows for cognitive development and access to the world created by humans. In addition, a strong first language foundation is essential for academic success. It is also a requirement for second language learning. Learning a second language is typically more difficult than first language acquisition. Whereas language acquisition happens naturally and spontaneously, meaning explicit teaching is unnecessary, second language learning depends on a person's knowledge of their first language and how they can apply that knowledge to the second language. As discussed previously, the language acquisition device and language acquisition theories explain how easily people can acquire their first language. As long as babies are exposed to language, they will pick it up. These theories and beliefs also explain why learning a language later in life becomes harder. When learning a second language, a person's fluency depends on their first language. As the person is exposed to concepts in the second language, the person makes connections to the first language. A person already understands the concepts of nouns, verbs, and adjectives, and the second language teacher does not need to reteach those concepts and categories. Therefore, if a person already struggles with identifying nouns, verbs, and adjectives in their first language, they will most likely struggle with identifying them when learning a second language. For example, if a person understands the concept of mother and father in the first language, then the only thing required in the second language is the label for mother and father. This also works with more complicated concepts such as justice or honesty. Again, the person only needs to learn the new word or sign. This is known as the linguistic interdependence theory. However, suppose the second language has a concept that does not exist in the first language. In that case, learning both the label and concept in the second language becomes more difficult, as there is no prior knowledge the brain can grasp. So, what does this look like in the brain? The Wernicke area of your brain is your lexicon center. It stores the vocabulary used in the languages you know. When you begin learning a new language, the Wernicke area will create a new lexicon center for this new information, and a temporary lexicon where your first and second languages mix. This is required as your brain determines what new vocabulary means in your first language, and vice versa. When translating from one language to the next, the temporary lexicon is responsible for finding the equivalent vocabulary. Over time, this temporary lexicon will disappear when the person can fully operate in the second language. Learning a second language takes time and effort. It requires memorization, adapting meanings to have more or less restrictions, and using different grammatical and sentence structures, all while your brain and first language get in the way. Second language learners often make mistakes because of first language influence. Two common errors made by second language learners are grammar and syntax. For example, in English, adjectives come before the noun. In ASL, the noun comes first. As a second language learner, you know how easy it is to make a grammar or syntax error. Although second language learning is more difficult, it takes less time than first language acquisition. If you think about it, first language acquisition starts at birth and continues well into a child's formative years. They are still learning and studying language concepts well into elementary school, where they are approaching the age of 10. Learning a second language can be done much faster, depending on the situation, the person's work ethic, first language abilities, etc. However, mastery and fluency will still take time. Let's turn to deaf children. If first language acquisition happens at a young age and must be done naturally and spontaneously, can a spoken language be a deaf child's first language? The following videos reviewing several studies will explore deaf children's language acquisition and second language impact.